These plants got a decent drink with that rain. Great news is there's more on the way. I made a few unexpected, unplanned plant purchases this morning when I dropped my bouquets off at Tarmore Garden Centre. So anyone who's new here, I have a small business called Brand's Blooms where I sell bunches of flowers, and I always drop off a load of them to the local garden centre every Friday. And yes, when I was there, I purchased 4 magnificent plants. Oh, and I also purchased some pots too. I'll show you them in a second. Look at the variegation. I really love plants that have variegation in the foliage. I don't know why, I just think it looks super cool. There's this one here too, which has absolutely beautiful, I don't think the camera's showing it, but it has these golden stems. It's actually called, let's flick around here and have a look at it. It's a golden cane palm. And I am going to put all of these 4 plants inside in the house. Here's the name of the variegated one that I showed you just before, the palm plant, and 2 Boston ferns. And I know the perfect spot to put these, even though they come with a hanger. I'm actually going to remove that because these are going to go into pots near the television in the lounge room. Here are the pots that I purchased, 3 different sizes. They'll look really great together or just dotted around the lounge room area. I saw them when I popped the flowers down by the counter. They really caught my eye. I actually ended up going home, so I didn't purchase them immediately. I went home, spoke to my husband, had a bit of a think about it, and I couldn't get them off my mind, so I drove back down. I don't usually get like that with things. It takes a lot for me to really love items, so I knew when I couldn't stop thinking about them that these would be perfect for our house and I would really enjoy them for years to come. I've been playing around with them a bit, so the golden palm's going to go in the largest pot and this one will go over here. Now I'm not sure what I'll put in this one yet, maybe some kind of succulent. Have to think about it, but these 2, as I said earlier, they'll go into pots near the TV. Now it was actually great timing today when I went down to the garden centre because Steve and Sylvie, who are the owners, had just come back from a trip to Byron Bay where they purchased a whole bunch of plants, and when I arrived they were unpacking their van, and especially when I saw these I was just like, wow, they're just so pretty. I would love one of them inside the house. I have to say I'm pretty nervous though because I made so many purchases, spent a good bit of money, and I'm worried I'm going to not keep these alive because I really don't have a good track record when it comes to indoor plants. The ones that I've picked up over the years have all since passed, so this is me starting the collection again fresh. Crossing my fingers, I will try my best to look after these super well, keep them growing and thriving, and I will keep you updated with them too. I have noticed that this plant is quite low down in the pot. Now I really have a couple of options, unless any of you can make some other suggestions. I could pot this plant up into a larger container which will help elevate it, or I was thinking I might just put like an old pot, turn it upside down, use that as a base and pop this one on top, which will draw it up to the lip of the container or the pot. I feel like I'm saying pot a lot. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know. Do you think that's the best thing to do, or have any of you got any other suggestions? The rain keeps on stopping and starting. I wish it would just pour all day because this garden needs a decent soaking, especially for all the perennials that are in flower, like the buddleia here. I know it would put on more of a display if it had some rainwater soaked into those roots. I mean, as much as you can water with a hose, I think rainwater really just elevates the show of flowers. Speaking of flowers, when I was at the garden centre, I also picked up some potted colour. I'm going to put these into the container garden, so I've got a couple of marigolds, a zinnia, and then I've got 2 containers of baby's breath. a dwarf variety, so it's nice and compact, perfect for my container garden. And I quite like these. I grow baby's breath as a cut flower, but the varieties that produce the longer stems, this one has these little single open faced dainty blooms. They very much remind me of alyssum, so similar. I'll find a spot for all of these beautiful flowering plants over here on the weekend, and I'll get them planted up, settled into their new little home. I was really hoping that I'd get a garden harvest done this weekend from the raised garden bed area, but it's just too wet in there and it's actually still quite overgrown. I'd rather get it a little bit more tidy before I show you, so we can take a proper look at the plants. But for the moment, we'll take another little quick look around here. So the reason why I chose some yellow for the potted colour, like the marigolds and the zinnias, is because a lot of my flowering plants here are starting to fade off. Like you've got the sunflowers, and then you've got some gerberas up here, which are almost finished. I'll be cutting them back and removing these plants. So yeah, I do like the colour yellow in my garden, so I need to keep that going. And gardening, especially this time of year, is all about succession planting to keep an area looking beautiful and healthy and productive. Look how much the basil has filled out since last week, but I have noticed that some of the foliage has been eaten by something, so that will require a little bit of investigating to see who is doing this damage. But thankfully it's not much, so the plants are still doing well. There's some clusters of flowers on the tomato plants, and I have seen plenty of bees in here, so hopefully fruit will set on these soon and we'll be harvesting from them very shortly. Do you remember last week I said to you that salvia plants are so forgiving? Well, look at the growth and the new flowers on this since I showed you last Friday. It has really just taken off after I gave it a bit of a feed. Now it just seems to be bouncing back. This one, the scaviola, which I showed you last Friday, is not doing so well. It's like it's regressed or something, and it's starting to die off. Now granted, I haven't put it in a container, so the pot is smaller than I would like, so maybe possibly it's dried out, but I have been watering this area. So I'm thinking, sometimes, you ever notice sometimes when you buy plants, you come home and after a few days they kind of go into shock. So they can look magnificent, they can have lots and lots of flowers on them, and then they tend to die back. I reckon I should have been more careful with this one and not placed it out in full sun, given it a few days in the shade just so it could climatize to this area. But hopefully now I'll be able to rejuvenate that. I'll give it some sea salt feed and we will pop it in here somewhere, and in a couple of weeks it will look much better and it will recover just like the way the salvia has. Had to stop filming for a while, now I'm back out, it stopped raining. I want to show you one more thing before I head off. This plant purchase, the final one of the week, a lavender plant reduced to $8 from $20, which I think is a pretty good deal. I just shoved it in there for the time being, but honestly I can't see anything wrong with it apart from the fact that it needs a little bit of deadheading for some of the spent blooms. That's about it. I mean, it looks really good and healthy. Whoops. Don't need to damage it, Brenda, keep it like that. Yeah, no, I was saying it looks nice and healthy, no sign of any disease on it, just needs a little bit of a prune, and I reckon it will be absolutely grand. Now, I used to have lots of lavender out in the garden, but since the renovations I don't have much at all. We had to dig up quite a number of plants, so I think it's about time I start building up that collection again. There's not a whole load of room in here to put that lavender plant. I may just have to pop it on the side somewhere down here. And I did notice that I got asked a question last week about the shelving unit that these containers are on, and I thought I have shown you before, but I know I've got a lot of new followers, so we may take a bit of a closer look. So in the comments I had mentioned that there's actually two shelving units with 3 tiers each, and I was actually gifted these from my husband's grandma She was a wonderful gardener. I've talked about her lots before, and I'm very lucky to have received these. You can see how well made they are. Nice solid, what's that, some kind of steel? I don't know, but I've had them for a number of years. And where's the join? Oh yeah, you can just see it down here. See, it's two separate units, and I've just put them up against each other, and I think they look really nice in this spot, and they are quite sturdy as well. No fear of any plants being knocked over, just me doing it, as you can see. I must try and find out a bit more information about it, because it looks like these pieces were welded together. I wouldn't be surprised if her husband had made this project for her. I could see Maud asking for something like this to display her plants. They do line up quite flush, don't they? You don't really notice they're two separate pieces. And look back there, such a mess. Maybe that's another job that I need to put on the list for the weekend, along with many other, mostly weeding. And next week I've actually got some zinnias appearing in my new cut flower garden, so I will be able to show them to you, and that's quite exciting. I'll soon be able to add them into the bouquets. Thanks so much for watching until the end. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it. I hope you have an awesome week, and I'll see you again next Friday. And this plant is going to look way healthier. I'm going to put this by the front door so I don't forget about it and come back out in a couple of days and it's completely dead. I'll see you guys.